Hey everybody, Brian King here, and I'm with my good friend and colleague, executive leadership coach, Debra Sunderland. And the reason we came together is she and I met maybe 1 or 2 months ago, and we clicked almost immediately. We have similar backstories, we have similar visions, similar passions, and one of those passions is for relationships, especially as they pertain to the work environment. And she and I were talking the other day about the impact this wave of what's referred to as millennials is having on the dynamic of the workplace. So we agreed that we need to get on a Google Hangout and have this conversation so that we can share our thoughts with other people. In fact, she and I are thinking a little bit more boldly than that. We're hoping that if what we have to say, what we have to offer is appealing enough to managers out there in the world that are challenged by the influx of millennials, that they may actually want to engage Debra and I to come and help them navigate and surf this wave a little bit more effectively.
Yeah.
So first, I want to say hello to Debra. Let her introduce herself a little bit. Debra, tell these folks who you are.
Hi, Brian, and everyone. Welcome. I am passionate, like Brian is, about supporting people, engaging people, connecting people, that relationships come first in business. And if you have that, you have everything. Understanding and communication. How do different people, different generations understand each other just from how they grew up? So today we're going to discuss a little bit about the millennials, how they think, how their leaders think differently and sometimes struggle in that. So Brian and I are very excited to share some of the things that we know, some of the things I experience as a coach. I coach leaders, executives, and their teams, specifically on how to help them communicate, work collaboratively together, and in the end, their results are far better, and the retention as well is more sustainable. So
Awesome.
Sorry, go ahead.
So let's dive in let's start off on a positive note. There are pleasures and pains when it comes to dealing with anything in life, including the millennials. So let's start with the plus side. And we're going to keep it to 3 each to keep an even balance. We'll talk about 3 pleasures and 3 pains. So the 3 pleasures that Debra and I identified is that these kids are born digital. Means they only know the technology that we as adults had to become accustomed to. I have a 17-year-old who is a millennial, and we got a new TV recently, and I was confused by the information booklet. I handed the boy the remote, and without reading any directions, he programmed TV. It's like these kids come out wired for this technology. For us older folks that can't really keep up with the rapid changing way the technology is unfolding, our kids just get it. So when our businesses are requiring more and more complex technology, having these millennials around help us navigate it is a godsend because they just get it. Would you agree with that, Debra?
Yes. Can you hear me okay, Brian?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Yes, I totally agree. Millennials are quick to jump in. They're not afraid of technology. They're very comfortable with it. If you need help, they're ready to just jump right in and help. They connect very easily with their friends. They keep in close connection. That is a good thing. They keep a very good connection with their friends via texting particularly. So they are used to connecting in that way. They do want to be connected quickly, as a matter of fact. That's their big thing. It's all about quick. They love to have fun. They love to enjoy life. They want to be with one another and connected in that way.
Well, in fact, one of the conflicts they have with our very, no offense to the teachers, I love you all, our very antiquated education model is that everything they're being asked to memorize and regurgitate now, they can find in 5 seconds on Google. No, and anything that you need them to discover, they can discover it for you right in front of you. They say, hey, let me do a quick search here. Let me look on YouTube. Let me look on Yahoo or Bing or Gmail or something, whatever it is. They know all these resources, Wikipedia.
Yes.
So they can be tremendous researchers for you because they are aware of many more ways of getting information than we ever imagined. So they're wonderful for that as well.
Mhm.
And one thing I've noticed, and if you think back a little ways to when the Middle East was seemingly imploding, governments were falling, what was referred to as the Arab Spring, okay?
Mhm.
These were not the elderly that were orchestrating this. It was the millennial generation over in the Arab world using Twitter.
Mm.
They were using Twitter to say, this is where we're organizing. These are our plans. This is where we're going to protest. And it was the young people using social media, using the new technology that rose up and created social change. And even though the people in our country will say, oh, our kids are lazy, they don't care, they're disaffected. I have clients that are millennials. Now, I have a son that's a millennial. It's amazing what these kids care about, but you know what? They don't talk to us about it. They talk to each other.
Yes.
So we assume that because we don't hear them talking about it, that they don't care, because they don't think about it the same way we do.
Mm.
They're talking about it in Facebook groups and Twitter chats.
Yes.
And in group texts, which is the equivalent of when my mother sends me this chain newsletter through email and spams me and 100 other people. Our kids are doing this with very intimate, maybe 10 people group chats back and forth. And honestly, those kind of chats have replaced the board meeting.
Yes. And
That's
I must
where
say,
these kids get together and organize. Go ahead, Debra.
I must say, my son, who's just on the cusp of a millennial, because he is so into understanding news in the world via technology, he much more readily receives that information, digests it, takes it in, and is able to tell me what is happening. Whereas I tend to not want to be as involved in technology in that way. So he is able to process and take in the world, I think, as well as most millennials. They're used to visually seeing things right up and close and personal to them, whether it's here or around the world, where we didn't grow up that way. So they're more open in that sense to hear what's happening right now. They want right now. Whereas for me, I'm like, whoa, I need a moment. I'm not sure I want to hear that. So I think that's another plus about them, that they're able to sustain something, even if it's tragedy. I think they're able to hear news that way more quickly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I remember when CNN really gained traction in the early 90s, I was in college. The Gulf War, the invasion of Kuwait and Iraq, and thinking just how awesome this 24 news idea was. And that's all our kids know.
Yes.
You can go on the stream of the broadcast. You don't even need a TV anymore.
Yes.
Debra, you and I grew up with TVs that had 5 channels, and you had to get up to change the channel, right?
Yes,
and our kids know remote. They know Siri on their phone.
Yes.
There is so much that's different about the way they engage their content.
Yes.
And
yes.
Having that access and having their curiosity fed, if anything, these kids are in a position to be much more socially conscious than we ever were, because they can't escape the messages of what's happening in the world.
Yes.
And one of the ways this social consciousness is very valuable to companies is because we need to understand more than ever the lives, the cares, the wants, the needs of the people that we serve, of our prospects, our consumers. And our kids know how to reach out and get that and engage.
Yes.
They know how to go on Twitter and Facebook and begin the conversation, whereas we're waiting for the phone to ring, we're sending email back and forth, trying to schedule a lunch meeting.
Yes.
Where our kids have already connected with each other.
Yes.
They're already exchanging photos and having a relationship. So that's something that we can really learn from them. And fortunately, that's something that I've become more adept at, because socially, I tend to be shy when I'm much more face-to-face with people. The electronic media has been a godsend for me in that it allows me that buffer that has taught me how to be more vulnerable, how to be much more individual in my communication. The stuff the millennials just know how to do. I figured it out over time, and I'm finding out just how powerful a skill set it can be. And if you as a manager don't really know how to do that, aren't interested in getting to do that because maybe it's not your core genius, you've got people around you that know how.
Yes.
Delegate to them and trust them in their ability to make it happen.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the pain points, and then we can kind of tennis back and forth between the two.
Okay.
Well, one of the pain points about millennials is that their short attention span is kind of referred to as the new ADD, which is not. I have ADHD. They're not the same thing. But what it refers to is the fact that there's so much information coming in all the time that unfortunately the shiniest or the loudest thing wins.
Yes.
So it's a matter of them really learning some prioritization skills more than anything, so that they know this is what we're focusing on, this is the outcome that we want to create, so this is going to be the channel you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on the video stream or check your emails or whatever it is you're doing. Go ahead, Deborah.
I was going to say, they don't even necessarily check. Some of the complaints I get are that they don't even really check emails. And that's a concern I have going forward, especially even with the 2020s coming up. They don't even check voicemail for that matter. But they're texting, and the information back and forth so quickly also lends to the fact that they can just, I'll just wait, because sooner than later I'm going to get another idea or another offer or another more information or less information, whatever it is they're looking for. So they're not apt to make a commitment. Or if they decide something, they think they can just quickly change again, because there's all these offers of sorts around them. They want to have flexibility because they're used to having flexibility, doing what they want quickly. They expect other people, I think, sometimes to be able to go at their pace. And that's not always the case.
That's a very good point about the emails, because just yesterday, I called my sister and she wasn't around. And did I leave a voicemail? No. Because I knew she'd see that I called, and lo and behold, a couple hours later, she texted me and asked me what it is I want. And come to think of it, I can't remember the last time I left a voicemail. Even when I call my own mother, who has her own iPhone, if I call her and I can't reach her, I send her a text. So when she picks up the phone, she sees that I texted, I mentioned in the text what I'm about, I'm calling her rather, what I was calling her about, and she decides whether she wants to text back or whether she wants to call me, depending upon what her energy level is, or if she feels like talking.
Yeah, it's absolutely
true.
So
playing that phone tag, really, and I can't emphasize this enough, it's staying inside of our comfort zone of communication at the expense of productivity, because you can waste so much time playing email tag and playing phone tag, when honestly, if you both just warm up to picking up your phone and texting, you can get done so much more quickly. But that's another conversation.
Yes. That is where in the business world, with the baby boomers, Generation Xers, we struggle with a bit, is that we are used to doing work together, taking time to make decisions, face-to-face meetings, whereas the millennials aren't as tolerant of that. They want, their attention spans do tend to, as you had mentioned, to be a little shorter. They thrive on visuals. They thrive on the visuals changing quickly. So they realize as well, though, that there is a gap. I think all sides see that there is a gap in understanding and connecting with one another. They do want, the biggest complaints that I hear are that they really, because they're used to flexibility, they want flexibility in their work schedules. They want a quicker promotion. They don't want to wait for things. And in the business world, we know a lot of times you have to wait. You have to wait internally. You have to wait externally. You have to support one another in the waiting. And that's, I think, a big part of the area that millennials need to be coached on. What it is like to wait, what it is like to hear someone and take time with it, have a commitment to something just as is. So those areas I hear the leaders really having a struggle with. And by the time 2020 comes around, we're going to have half of our companies are going to be consumed with millennials. So the leaders are looking to right now, how do we connect with them? How do we understand them? Because there are so many great things that they do bring, but this needs to be understood, both sides. Mm-hmm. And they are asking.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was going to say that nowadays the big thing to ask for on a signing of a position is not just money. But millennials really want a coach. They know that there's something that they are missing relationally that a text isn't going to give them. And the millennials are asking for a signing of a coach on site, internally or externally, so that they can get up to speed, so they can get what they aren't having. And also millennials were, according to Generation Xers, they were with their parents more. They had more support than we did. So they are, in that sense, a little more connected to an older person around them as well. Mm-hmm. So that is a good thing.
Yeah, I can say my sons and I are very close. You know, I'm closer with my mother because she'll call me with tech issues. You know, something that I think is very simple. You know, how do I upload a photo to Facebook? I can't figure it out. You know, and it's amazing how we're attending to each other around overcoming technological challenges.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is funny. It is funny. And the other thing I want to mention is the millennials are fun. They love to be with their friends. They want to enjoy life. They want to interact with others. So if you can have a workspace that brings that about, whether it's the way the cubicles are arranged or seating arrangements or even the boardroom, they want to enjoy life. Not only make a difference, but enjoy life. So if you could effectively bring them into that and be prepared, they also like to be entertained as well. Something that I didn't grow up so much having a ton of, but they are used to having that at their fingertips as well. Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I'm seeing, there are some websites setting themselves up this way, and some businesses in general, there's a term called gamification. It's when you can engage a website, and the more you engage it, you win points that earn you badges and things like that. So it's like a video game. You know, yes. It's like playing Mario Brothers.
Yes.
You know, you go through different levels and you get your points and whatever. And they're noticing that this works beautifully with people, especially the millennials. They get their
yes.
tokens.
Yes.
They get that visual symbol of progress.
Yes.
So I imagine there must be some ways, in fact, if there's any millennials listening to this, create your own little scoreboard. You know, give yourself a sticker at the end of the day if this is something that you value. And it can be your little secret. You can share it with friends and say, hey, you get a smiley face for the day. Because whatever you need in order to measure progress, so you can learn a little patience, do it.
Yes.
You know, because the people in our generation who are used to waiting, being patient, things take time. Mm-hmm. You know, it all happens in time. Whereas our kids are used to something faster. We've got to somehow meet in the middle, and instead of telling them, listen, kiddo, I've been here for a couple more decades than you, and that's not how the world works.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, to my brethren and sisters out there, that is the way their world works. So we need to understand that, and we need to bridge that gap instead of judging them, bullying them, and shaming them by calling them immature, narcissistic, selfish. No, they're not. They are growing up in a world we didn't.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But this is their world, and we need to understand it, and we also need to benefit from the strengths that come along with it.
Yes.
So Deborah, what have you found in your work that really helps bridge the gap between the two generations?
What I found is doing team building exercises, going back right to the beginning with teams together. What is it like to talk to someone if you have an issue? What is it like to listen and be heard? How do you speak truthfully and honestly to someone and share that to the person that needs to be spoken to? Not to someone else, and it never gets taken care of, and then gossip occurs. So I think just the very basics we should have learned in junior high is how to speak to one another, how to address what needs to be addressed right away, and to not live in fear. The more communication, I think, the better. And so if we could, I'm bringing these people together face to face in a large room, and we talk about it. We talk about how we're feeling. We talk about what we're thinking. We talk about what our concerns are. And then we work on, from there, we work on what their goals are for the day as teams, and how can they really, our goals are, how can we work together as a collaborative team? Instead of it being maybe the operations and the client side with all the different ages, how can we collaborate together? And what does that look like? And getting people speaking about it, because then people can share from their side, from their generational bent, what it is that would be helpful to them. And it's been really good. It's been really, really good. And to address even then and there, if there's an issue with someone, not to hide it and stuff it down. So being really real and authentic in the workplace, that we're people first. Even as a millennial, we're people first. And if you put that first, no matter what, there's going to be success. So that's what I'm finding. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I mean, you are really singing my song here. Because my history professionally, I have my LCSW. I'm a social worker by training, and I spent a lot of time working face to face with clients. Then I transitioned to working virtually, working exclusively over phone or Skype. Now I'm become very proficient at building community in social media, whether it be LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And now I've transitioned away from the coaching and more to marketing, where my training has a very interesting application, where I look at how does that human to human dynamic emerge? How does it shape in the social space? And when you talked about learning how to talk to each other, learning how to give each other feedback, I spent a lot of time with my clients coaching them on not only the face-to-face piece, but also the digital piece. Is how do you have that conversation there? And in terms of forming relationships, how do you begin in the digital space and then move it to a much more personal space? How do you engage somebody on Twitter for the first time or Facebook and lead that to comfortably picking up the phone or scheduling a Skype session or maybe meeting face-to-face?
Yes.
And nowadays, it's so natural to do things that way. There are people that I met online that I become close with. One lives in Australia, one lives in London. You know, every now and then we'll get together when we can synchronize the time zones. And we feel like we're talking to old friends. It's not like the first time we ever talked. So there are so many different ways to engage people intimately, authentically, honestly, regardless of what the medium is.
Yes.
And the millennials have really learned just what connection means and just how many different ways it can happen.
Yes.
You know, face-to-face is one road to Rome, but it is not the only one.
Yes. I think with that being said, there's got to be a balance, right? That we learn from one another. If it's just, as you had said, social media, technology, that's all wonderful, but it can't be the end all be all. We do need each other. We do need face-to-face. We do need time together. We need touch. We need humanness. So I think what we're finding is there's an imbalance at times. And if we can bring that to more of a balance and help each other learn what that looks like in relationship, whether it's work or not, everyone grows, which is great, because when there's challenges, there always means growth, and there's always opportunity, and there's always choices, which is awesome. Yeah.
So what are some of the main takeaways that we want people to take away from this conversation?
I think be really open to learning and growing yourself. What is it you can learn from someone else, whatever age it is, and what can you give back to that person? I think positively about what that other person is, who that other person is, if they're a millennial, looking at how they grew up, how they see things, and maybe not just assuming that it's X, Y, Z, but it's just the way they have learned to access the world and the world business, school, what it may be. And that there's just a lot of opportunity, Mm-hmm.
One thing that I see missing in many leaders these days is teachability.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that the person at the top needs to be the smartest kid in the room. And when you look at a lot of CEOs, Fortune 500, they have their leadership team, they have their group of advisors, they have buddy across town, they can call and pick his brain, they help each other out. So the job of the person at the top is to make the most informed decision, not to know everything right off the bat. So if you are essentially teachable, it makes sense that you are going to reach out to the people that you supervise and say, tell me your experience on this. What are your thoughts? This is what I'm thinking. How do you think this would impact you?
Yes.
And show the people that you are overseeing and guiding that you value their input, you care about their input and their experience. And lo and behold, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to have more loyalty.
Yes.
You're going to have more rapport, because people who feel invested in the direction of things are going to be far more loyal to the leader and to the company.
Yes.
And bottom line is, with the pace things are changing, you must learn from them.
Yes. And if you look at leadership, I like to look at leadership as servant leadership. If you can guide and serve yourself in order to fill yourself up, to learn, to grow, to become a better person inside of yourself, in order to then hopefully give out to others, instead of just leading someone because you know best, it's a totally different connection. And millennials, people who are being led, they can sense whether they're being valued. They can sense whether they have something to bring to the table. They can sense whether they're wanted to be a part of a team. And so I think as a leader leads, they have to lead themselves internally first and model it. And if they model that, it's caught. So I think that's the most effective way in this. Mm-hmm.
So leadership begins with reciprocity. We need to learn from each other. We need to listen to each other. We need to give feedback to one another.
Yes.
And that's probably a wonderful way to bring the blending of the two sides together, so that millennials can teach our generation and we can teach them some of our savvy, tried and true business concepts.
Yes.
Because let's face it, the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs are coming out of the millennial generation.
That's right.
And there's a lot that they can learn from us, and there's a lot we can learn from them.
Yes.
So what do you think, Debra? I think that we've given the folks enough to think about for today. What do you think?
I think we did a great job together. Great working with you, Brian.
It's a pleasure. Now, if people want to find out about you, Debra, where's the best place for them to find you?
They could find me at Debra at debrasunderland.com. That's my website. There's information about me there. And also my address, debrasunderland3@gmail.com. What about you, Brian? How could they reach you?
Online, very similarly, you can go to my website, which is my entire name, brianraymondking.com, or send me a tweet at Brian R. King on Twitter, and tweet me up. We'll have a little chat. So we'll close it for today. I get the sense Debra and I will be having a lot more of these conversations. Yes. And if there's anything in particular you'd like us to address, email Debra or email me, and we'll help you out, okay?
Absolutely.
Have an awesome day, everybody, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Enjoy.
Take care, Debra.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.